Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild and wacky, wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. This is it, the game we've been waiting for, people. Can we do it? We're going to find out. We've got some very special guests to help us do it. Here we go.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, no matter where in this world you might be, as I said. Thank you for making us part of your day once again. The big game is coming this weekend. For those listening on our audio platforms, thanks so much for making us part of your day too. Here we are. It's a juggernaut of a podcast, a channel, a community. Joining us today to preview Liverpool versus Arsenal from the Anfield Wrap, John Gibbons and Harriet Prior. Welcome to Squad Central.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. I love your intro video. What a vid. Love it.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we've got that coolness about us again where we could act like the Arsenal boys. I'm not sure. And the Arsenal women as well, by the way. My girls smashing it in the WSL. It's a good time to be an Arsenal fan. Real quick before we get stuck in, John, you were just in the US. I live here. We've got really good listeners here. You've got amazing listeners everywhere in the world. How was it? Did you enjoy hanging out with the US football fans while you were here?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was, you know, it was tough going. We did 6 shows in 6 nights in 6 different cities, so there was a lot of moving. Living out of a suitcase. I used to be in bands in my 20s when I was cool, and so it felt like being a musician again. You know, just moving from place to place and performing. But I mean, the passion in the States. I mean, you'll know it as well. Sophie is unbelievable, and you know, it's been a while since we've been over with COVID, but it feels like all the time the Premier League's growing, Liverpool's growing, and people's, you know, passion, and not just for the football, but also for everything about the club is what always I really like and really enjoy. You know, they're obviously, you know, asking questions about the team and stuff like that, but it becomes so ingrained in the whole culture of the football club is incredible. And so yeah, we loved it. We had a great time, and looking forward to hopefully coming back later in the year and doing the other side because we were East Coast, so I've got a few requests to go over to the West Coast, which, you know, I'm sure won't be too much of a hardship, so maybe later in the year we'll head over there.
That's awesome. And we here on the West Coast say the West Coast is the best coast. So, you know, that California sunshine especially. So, yeah, it'd be great to see you guys when you're here. And the Arsenal are coming, of course, in the summer to play the MLS All-Star game. And I love that they visit here often, of course, with the American owners. I think that's a good thing. Right, let's get stuck into this. So Super Kev we were going to talk tomorrow, and Super Kev was going to be here. So Super Kev can't be here today. But even when Super Kev isn't here, he's here. And he couldn't resist, of course, having the Anfield Wrap crew here, being a former Toffee and a former Gooner, to send you guys some questions. So how about I just play Kev's questions and then we'll go from there. And by the way, squaddies, I did lose my manners. When Kev isn't here, I always forget to salute you. So you know what? We've got Super Kev to do that for you. Here we go.
Squatty Sophie, Anfield Wrap, John and Harriet, how are you doing? I hope you're well. Just want to ask you, a question really. One, what's your thoughts on how your season has gone? Obviously, it's a big disappointment from where you guys have been. And what's your thoughts on Jurgen Klopp and the dressing room? What's your thoughts on that? And the last little one, which is a bit of a bonus, is apart from midfield, because I know Liverpool, everybody at Liverpool's talk about their midfield, where would you strengthen? Or is Jude Bellingham the answer? That's the other thing. Anyway, look after yourselves. Super Kev, I'm out. At ease, squaddies, take it easy. John, Harriet, look after yourself. Take good care. Sophie, squaddies, at ease.
Oh my God, I loved it. I felt like we'd ordered a video off Cameo. Like
Honestly, when he said our names, I was like, oh. He needs us.
That was amazing. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, super. He's such a special human being. Talk about, it was a great footballer, but what a special human being he is. Incredible. He was wearing that last night's show. He comes on with the body, I'm used to calling it a lifesaver now. I've been in America too long. And it's like Marty McFly moment, but going into combat. Three good questions. And I think really the main questions, Harriet, how about we kick off with you here with Kev's first question is kind of what's gone wrong this season.
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for a lot of us to kind of pinpoint him. It's something we've been talking about at the Anfield Wrap at length for kind of months now, and since our form's not being very good, like what exactly is going wrong. And I think a lot of it we've kind of come down to is a really mental side of things, and that kind of combined with the fact that so many of these players have just basically been run into the ground for seasons on end and won everything there is to win under this manager. And I think maybe just coming to the end of its life cycle a little bit in terms of the legs and the physicality and what they've got left in the tank. But that, of course, has a knock-on effect on the mentality and the levels of kind of confidence that they have. And when the results aren't going your way and you're not entering those games like we used to with that sense of inevitability of winning it and that intensity, that really quickly trickles down. And they just don't look like a team at the moment that has that belief in each other and that kind of trust in each other and that sense of where everyone's going to be at all times, which they used to be so good at. So yeah, a lot of these things combining, and then probably one John will talk about as well, a bit of lack of reinvestment and lack of investment in the squad. And he mentioned Jude Bellingham there, didn't he? And that's not helped either. Yeah,
I mean, Kev mentions Jurgen Klopp as well. And by the way, your documentary was really insightful. Even as an opposing fan, it was really interesting. I love watching as much as I can. I'm a junkie when it comes to that. It was really insightful, and he's been such a breath of fresh air. Even he feels maybe, John, that he's gotten a little stale. Super Kev always tells me, and we've argued about this, that it's the players. So when I was having a pop at Arteta in the early days, Kev said to me, it's the players. Once he has his own players, and we saw that with Liverpool, we saw that with Klopp. Has he lost them a little bit? Is that happening there or no?
I don't think he's necessarily lost them. I think there might be a case that, he is so demanding as a manager that the players have just become a bit fatigued by it all. And I think that's in the legs, but also in the mind a little bit. And, there's only so often you can hear the sort of the same messaging, I think, a little bit as well before that starts to, sort of get a bit fatigued with that as well. So I think I'd be very surprised if you spoke to any of the players that they wouldn't have, honest, positive things to say about the manager. I think just after a while, because it's such a demanding style of football that we do play, and that the manager plays and that the manager prefers, this intensity and everything, that I think it's a little bit of a, are there enough new bodies in there, or new minds, or people who are successful for it, thinking, I'm really excited to play for Liverpool, I'll run all day for you. Have enough of those sort of come in, really, or the ones that have come in, are they, the similar sort of standard to the ones that have gone? That is the question at the moment. So we're in a bit of a funny place this season, really. It is that the T word, the transition seems to be a little bit sort of there between some lads who maybe best years are behind them and are struggling to play the intensity one, and then some guys who are coming in but are maybe struggling to do what Jurgen needs them to do at the moment. And the combination of those two things is a little bit of a mess, what we're seeing now.
And Kev mentioned the midfield, and that midfield was like the Great Wall of China for so many years. I mean, half the success was the fact that the midfield won the ball so much and took the pressure off, Trent and Van Dijk and all of those players. So, when you look at that, because when Kev does say it's the players, I also think the manager is culpable. I always argued that Arteta early didn't have a plan B. And it feels like your plan A isn't working this season, which as an Arsenal fan, I love. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But is he culpable, guys? A little bit?
I think it's been difficult for him to have a plan B. I mean, we kind of saw a plan B last night, didn't we, in terms of the fact that he made 6 changes to the squad and the starting 11, and then trying to see how that played out. And that didn't have too much of an impact either. And then with the injuries, because there has been a lot of injuries, and I'm never going to be one to sort of blame everything on that, but those kind of have been creeping in. And then he's not been able to kind of rely on players in the squad as much to come in and make a big difference. So there has been, it's been difficult because plan A hasn't been working, as you said, but then when he has tried plan B, whether that's bringing in new players, whether that's changing formation a little bit, he's tried to switch up from the standard 4-3-3 that he usually plays. He's played one at the top, all those different things. Nothing's really clicked in place that has convinced him enough that he wants to stick to a plan B. So obviously, I think he's not beyond or above criticism, and some of the substitutions at times we've been the first to say, we're not sure about that. We don't really like that, but I'm not sure what much else he has to work with the current squad. And that's why we've been so focused on kind of who we need to bring in the summer.
Do you guys think that the Bellingham talk, and because, another thing that Kev says is like, players don't give a shit about stuff like that. They go out, they play football. They're not thinking about who's the owner going to be. Are we going to buy Jude Bellingham? They're just putting their shirt on. They're going out there and they're playing. But in some sense, Liverpool has been so stable over the last 6 or 7 seasons and been a shining example for my club, I think, taking a leaf out of there with the patience and the building and all of that, to the point where Chelsea tried with Potter, but they just couldn't resist, could they? They had to let him go. That's just not their culture. John, is that? Do you think that's fair or foul, or does that come into play at all?
I think it's interesting whether the ongoing ownership situation generally is filtering through, and that's the question that is being asked by Liverpool supporters and is a difficult one to answer. But you feel like must be having some sort of effect. There was talk that are we for sale? Aren't we for sale? What are they looking for? Full sale? Are they looking for investment? And what does that mean? And I think a few of the players have mentioned now in interviews the need to reinvest in some of the fact that that they feel that the bodies are needed. Every time, especially the English players do an interview, they're asked about Jude Bellingham, Henderson, Trent, especially because they've got close relationships with them. So they must know it's sort of an ongoing thing. I think there's a general feeling around the football club that, we need to spend more this summer than we have in the past. They've relied on, small evolution really, and it's got to the point now where you're looking at it and thinking, well, actually, more widespread changes are needed this year to get some new energy into the team. And I think the players are only human if they're wondering whether the current owners are sort of willing to do that, really, because they haven't been so far. They haven't been the ones to sort of really splash the cash, really. It's only really the summer where we sold Phil Coutinho for huge money where they sort of went big. And so this summer requires something that FSG sort of haven't done before, really. And I would imagine that the players are wondering, whether that's going to happen. I'm sure the managers had some sort of, reassurances either way. So I think we're all going to have to wait and see on that, because it doesn't look like any investment's going to happen now between now and the summer. So it's up to them to make it happen. And I'm sure the players are wondering, but whether that's affected them, whether they cross the line or not, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the game coming up this weekend. Last night, Harriet, I don't know what Klopp was doing. Was he benching players? You mentioned it briefly, but I wanted to come back to it. Was he resting players for Arsenal? Are you guys still believing there's a chance? I mean, you don't want to be in the Europa Conference, Liverpool Football Club. What was he doing last night? Was he saving all those players for us?
Saving them all for you, yeah, probably. I don't know. I think it was a bit of a situation when we had a game on Saturday and then a quick turnaround to Tuesday night, and maybe he was just thinking, okay, mentally and physically, maybe different players for different reasons needed a bit of time out. Van Dijk was out with an illness, otherwise I think he'd have started. It was interesting that, the Salah one is probably the biggest one. Salah and Robertson are 2 players that usually start every game that didn't start that one. I don't know, because for me, you look at those 2 games and Chelsea and the form they're in, you're probably thinking that they'll be easier to get something out of a game than Arsenal, who are flying at the moment, even with the Anfield factor kind of in there. But I think he was just trying to give people a rest. I don't think there was much kind of more thought to it than that. He said in his press conference as well, we need to kind of see on the fitness of some players. So that probably factored into it as well. And they'd just been beaten by Man City and quite heavily as well. So some of them are probably like, I'd rather just they never think that, do they? But the manager's probably like, some of them don't need to be starting again 3 days later off the back of that defeat. But it's hard to know.
And it'll be typical of you lot to turn, prime Liverpool at the weekend against us. Come on, guys. The last time we met, John, it was a great game, 3-2. And I think I may have mentioned to you and Harriet, when I spoke to Sophie Nicolaou, he said to me his biggest fear was Saka and Martinelli. And we know that they've had joy playing against Liverpool. Martinelli especially has impressed. And Jurgen Klopp has waxed lyrical about him too. We're definitely a different team, I think, even this season to last season. Kind of even when you look at pictures of them in kits 2 seasons ago, they just look like young boys, and they've become, men and grown in front of our eyes. Are these the 2 players? Because there's another one in the mix that's kind of like our Jota, who we're calling him our Jota, is Trossard. And a lot of Arsenal fans compare Trossard to Jota and the effect that he's having this season already. But are these 2 the ones, John, that you guys fear the most?
I'd say so, yeah. And I think it was interesting you talked a little bit before about the idea of how Liverpool adapted and the plan B and stuff like that. And there's maybe a bit of a criticism at the moment to the manager that has he adapted enough to how the team are playing and obviously, our comparative places. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is that normally we would have, our fullbacks are very attacking and leave sort of space, but and that space behind the Saka and Martinelli will thrive into. So are you conscious of that in this game? Are you conscious of the fact that you're playing the team who are top of the league and giving them the respect and asking the fullbacks to sit a little bit further back? Or do you say, no, we're going to play our own game, we're going to be attacking and we're going to go for it, and if it be brave, and if it counts against us, so be it. And I think most of the time this season it feels like the team have still set up like we're the best team in Europe, even though we're a team who are sort of struggling really and are trying to play in that way, and then there's huge amounts of spaces. So it's going to be really interesting to me how the manager and how the team looks to counter your strengths and how much respect they pay Arsenal. Because you guys are sat at the top of the table, or whether we think, do you know what, actually we're at home, we're Liverpool Football Club, we believe in ourselves, we believe in our players, and also look at our home form against the other top sides. In the division, we beat Manchester City at home this season. Obviously, we beat Manchester United 7-0 as well. And so, or do they go, no, we're going to back ourselves? It's going to be fascinating to me. But I do think that whoever it is plays a fullback, and I would imagine he'll pick Trent and Andy Robertson. I imagine they'll both sort of come back in. How attacking they are, and how much we see of them, being basically extra wingers, or whether they're a little bit more conscious of what's going behind them. It's something I'm certainly going to be looking out for first 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, it's Harriet, it's so obvious for people. I mean, Saka and Martinelli have just been amazing. Saka's having the season of his life, and then we get to this stage of the season. Last year we lost Thomas Partey, Kieran Tierney, and Tomiyasu. Playing Liverpool with a Thomas Partey, but also we wanted to play him with the Saliba, and now Saliba is I don't think Saliba is going to be back for the rest of the season, but we'll see. So we've got Rob Holding, who probably doesn't put the fear of God in, Liverpool attacking players. However, I wanted to ask you, because, we're in a bubble and a Holding comes in, but, really we've been in love with our starters like Saliba, and there's players like, Gabriel Magalhaes, who is just an unsung hero. Who do you look at our team outside of the obvious and think, wow, that's a player I'd love playing for Liverpool Football Club?
This might be an obvious one, but Odegaard for me is someone who, whenever I watch play, I'm just like super impressed with. I think we've probably been speaking about midfield so much as well that I'm looking at midfielders in particular, but the kind of leadership he brings and the kind of understated leadership as well that I think he has at a really young age. And I know that's a lot of what Arsenal are built on particular season, is really fostering that young talent and bringing in those players who can perform. And the flip side of that is people have said, oh, in the big games, they might not be up to it. And Odegaard, for me, whenever I've watched games this season where Arsenal have gone behind or aren't maybe on top for periods of it, he's the one that's rallying everyone round and making sure that everyone's kind of at the top of their game. And I've been impressed with him and his kind of creative spark that he brings as well. So yeah, obviously Saka, Martinelli and everyone, and Saliba I think has been obviously incredible as well. But yeah, if I was kind of picking one player out apart from Saka, probably it would be Odegaard.
Who would it be for you, John?
Outside of the obvious, I think someone like Ben White actually is someone who we've really missed this season, because I think his versatility and his quality, sort of wherever he plays, you know, I didn't have him down as a fullback at all, to be honest with you. But then when I've seen him play there this season, he's looked really good, and from an attacking point of view as well, not just a defensive point of view. And we had we still have a similar player in Joe Gomez who just hasn't hit the heights. Who was a fantastic player for us when we were winning titles and we were top of the league, but has maybe got one injury too many, or maybe sort of things have caught up with him a little bit. But I think those players are almost the ones who win your titles, really, because there's having the stars and there's those guys, you know, Saka, who we talk about, who's in an irresistible form, but the players who are able to play a number of positions to a really high standard, who can be a bit maybe in and out of the team how it sort of suits, but I think those players are the ones who win your leagues, really. Unfortunately, the United teams of the 90s and early 2000s sort of had a few of them. And I think Liverpool had as well, when we were doing well. And for me, Arsenal have got one now. I've been really impressed with them this year.
What a steal, by the way, Trossard was as well. Like the fact that you just swooped in January and got him for that price. And he's like, those are the players that just pop up and win you titles because they just get the goals.
I think the Jota comparison is really good.
Yeah,
I
really
can definitely
good.
See that.
But yeah,
we're barking up the right tree with that one, aren't we?
Yeah.
And after losing out to Mudryk in the fashion that we did, and we thought like, oh, here we go again. Everyone's going to just throw darts at us. It's just been wonderful to watch. He's 7 assists. I mean, he scored a goal. He's brilliant. And I think Arteta's going to have he's got a bit of a pickle because Jesus is back. Martinelli's on fire. Trossard's on fire. Saka is. He's lucky in a way. Eddie's injured.
I remember those days when we had too many players in form. Yeah.
I feel like we're you. I always say this to you and John because, you know, I tap into you. You've been there. Okay. Do we finally beat you at Anfield in the league this weekend?
No.
Come on, Harriet. Okay, I want to know this too before you say that, but wouldn't Liverpool fans rather we win it than City? Because I know you hate us and we kind of hate you. I know hate's a strong word, but there's this underlying rivalry. Of course, it stems from 89 and beyond, right? Wouldn't you rather we won it than them?
Yeah, I would. I absolutely would. To be fair, I'd rather anyone won it than Manchester City again this year because they've just won it just too many times and we've been stung by them too many times. But you don't need to do it by beating Liverpool at Anfield. Sorry,
it is an interesting one because there's a bit of a split between Liverpool fans and more than you'd imagine. But let me sort of try and explain it best I can. I think for some Liverpool fans, it's Manchester City's title wins don't really count. And so if City win, it's like no one's won it really. Whereas if Arsenal win it, like you've sort of got to admit that you've been beat fair and square, but also there's this idea of, well, why have they been able to do it? And sort of we haven't really. And so I think for some people, the argument is, and it's not an argument I make, I'd rather Arsenal won it. But, you know, City, a bit like Chelsea's in the 2000s, they didn't really count, you know, either. They were just sort of, you know, bought league titles and sort of things like that, really. Whereas I think if Arsenal do it, and I think they will do it now. I think it's a bit more sort of wounding, if you like, from a point of view of actually, you know, there can't be any excuses. They've just been a better team than us, but also, you know, you should be using that to spur you on, really, and that's how the football club should look at it, really. And I think earlier in the season, I think Jurgen, you know, you mentioned there about maybe Jurgen changing a little bit, and you know, he was a bit defeatist earlier in the season, saying, "Oh, we can't compete with Manchester City and stuff like that." And I found that really strange because I thought, well, we have for 5 seasons. So why are you saying sort of now? And Arsenal have proved it is possible. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult, and you need a lot of things to go for you and the stars to align and stuff. But it is kind of possible, really. So I'd rather Arsenal won it because it'd be something different, and I am genuinely fond of the football club for a variety of reasons, not least 2001, the FA Cup final, where I couldn't believe how magnanimous your supporters were afterwards, whereas I'd have been completely the opposite, but I was on the beers with a few Arsenal fans in Cardiff who who was saying, "No, it's our fault. We didn't take our chances, so you deserve it." And I was like, I would not be this person at all if it was the other way around.
Thanks for bringing that one up.
Oh no, honestly, you guys were great afterwards. It helped that Cardiff was a wonderful city, and we were all sort of enjoying it.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll always sort of remember that. But yeah,
I'm glad you said what you did, John, because there's an article. Everyone kind of, I'm sure you saw it go viral. You know, I think was it the Liverpool Echo journalist that wrote that?
Oh, Ian Doyle. Yeah,
Ian Doyle, and it's just sent Arsenal fans spinning, of course. But I just thought that was harsh. I mean, there's a transition every year. You know, the Leicester year, United, but you know, United were in the title race apparently a few weeks ago, and they could win it. And it's like the further forward we go, the more people want to beat us with the stick to say, "Oh well, there's still these milestones Arsenal have to reach. Yet there's 9 games left, and here we are." And I don't think the table lies.
Well, the points total does, and I think I saw a statistic the other day, which was there's only one Manchester City side in the last 10 years who've got more points than Arsenal have got now, which is like, so I'm not just saying this because I'm on it. I don't think you can compare it to the Leicester season at all. I mean, Leicester won the league with low 80s in terms of points, and listen, they've got the title and they'll always sort of remember it. But I don't think you can compare the two. I think Arsenal have been absolutely sensational and deserve a huge amount of credit.
Yeah, if you win it, fully deserved. Like, there's nothing we can say, is there? Even though we've been hurt by losing by 1 point, like that will be the frustrating thing. Like you mentioned, the fact that we could, if someone's competed with them this season, won it, and it's not us. But if you win it, then it's, you know, fair play.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. And I tell you, I still have a few nightmares where I wake up and I'm like, we didn't lose the league on goal difference, did we? No. It's like there's a PTSD all sets in. I've been there. But thanks so much for joining, you guys. You're absolutely brilliant. I've got your tags here up on screen. You can follow at the Anfield Wrap, and also give Harriet. You can see Harriet on Liverpool Football Club television as well, right, Harriet? And you'll see Harriet on Sky Sports too. Tell them where they can find you. Other than that, if I've got it all in.
Just there, Harriet Prior. Yeah, I'm just the same across everything. Yeah, thanks for having us on, Sophie.
It's been lovely. And John, keep smashing it. You guys do a great job over there, and I hope we beat you. I just want to beat you, because Kev, you know what Kev said? He said, "Soph, we've got to beat them. If you want to be champions, you've got to win that game. Win at Anfield, don't lose at the Etihad."
Well, Super Kevin Campbell is still the last person to score a winner for Everton in a Merseyside derby at Anfield. So they haven't won one since, but he does know what it's like to win at Anfield, even for Everton.
He certainly does. Thanks, guys. Take care, and at ease, squaddies, at ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.